Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in on a very special day here, Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew. He's our older birthday boy, Betz.
It's never been more over, Kyle. It's never been more over. The mid-30s are officially here, and that was a sad realization this morning. But I'm in a good mood, Kyle. You know, we're on, week 5 in the NFL? It's crazy already. It is my birthday, as you mentioned. And, only good vibes today. So I'm excited for this show. Should be great. An interesting slate because we finally have bye weeks. I'm sorry to London and to England for giving you Vikings and Browns. So we have an early morning game as well on Sunday between Carson Wentz and Joe Flacco. Should be great. So it should be a really fun slate, man. I'm excited to break it down today.
Would you like for me to reveal to you all of the NFL players that share a birthday with you?
Oh, please.
It's not the best list. Like Equinemius St. Brown. You guys are birthday bros. Kool-Aid McKinstry, the DB for the Saints. Yeah, that's fun. Landon Dickerson, your boy.
Okay. Go Birds.
Okay, now let me give you some weird names, okay? Because there's a guy in the 50s named Bubba Green.
Bubba. It's my boy.
This is a good one. A tackle that played in the 30s and 40s named Baby Ray.
That is a sweet name.
All right, and I think my last one is Dinty Moore, which I believe Dinty Moore is the name of like a soup company. Yep.
Are you saying Denty?
Dinty, D-I-N-T-Y.
Interesting.
He was a wingback, as the position goes.
Dude, the kids don't even know what a wingback is.
No, they definitely don't. So congratulations to you, Dinty Moore, Baby Ray, everybody born on September 30th. Now, just to tell people, when you have a birthday in your 30s and you have very small children, it's not the same.
What's funny, dude, is like, I don't know, maybe at like 29, you like kind of forget how old you are. Does it happen to you?
It just kind of all blurs together. Like, I think I'm somewhere around here.
Yeah, totally. This didn't happen now, but like back in, I think it was when I turned 28 or 29, stopped by and purchased a few adult beverages at a beer distributor, and the guy goes, like, what's your birthday? And I like told him, and he's like, okay, how old are you? And I like literally paused for a second. I was like, hold on. I had to correct it. The other thing that happens though when you have little kids and you have a birthday is like you kind of just embrace that this day is going to be just like every other day.
Oh no.
It's their schedule. It's their world. We're on their routine. So it is what it is. But yeah, we got some family coming over tonight for dinner. Should be a good time. The girls were very excited to give me my birthday gift this morning. So that was fun at breakfast. So yeah, all good, man. But they're just not the same as they used to be. When you're 20, 21. Times have changed, Kyle. I'll say that.
My summer pool parties, which I had every single year with all my friends playing N64 in the basement, like those were the birthdays you remember.
Oh man, what a time! What a time to be alive. What was your game on N64?
I mean, we played a lot of GoldenEye together. I played Smash Bros. I mean, I played King Griffey Jr.'s Winning Run, which wasn't as good as the Super Nintendo version, but yeah, a lot of that stuff. NFL Blitz, the good stuff.
Dude, NFL Blitz was unreal. Also, probably not great for our youth or when we were kids to be playing it like, I'm going to literally, destroy this player 9 times after the whistle until it can't get up. It's great.
To pile drive and then like just jump up and sit on them. And my strategy, which I'm assuming is a lot of people, was like, I'm going to sit in the secondary and just take out people if they're running routes.
Yeah, no such thing as pass interference.
Yeah, no, it was good stuff. On this episode, Betz and I will review this past week, which was great for a lot of listeners, for ourselves in cash. I will say so far, I think that was the best week we've had so far on the podcast. Finally got a slate breaker. I snapped my streak, so that was good. We'll review the process and then turn the page to week 5. We have 4 teams on bye. including my beloved Falcons, who cannot hurt me when they are on bye. But I do know they'll be resting up because in week 6, they have a Monday night game against the Bills, and I will be there at the game.
I'm sorry, Josh. Josh Allen, going into that building on a Monday night, crowd is going to be raucous. I feel so bad for anybody that thinks the Bills are going to walk in to that building and leave with the W.
The Dirty Birds coming off a bye, you don't just walk into the bins.
Well rested. They got the big rest advantage, Kyle. I mean, it's never been more over for Buffalo.
I'm going to put the line. I'm just going to say it right now. I know we're a week or so ahead. I'm going to say the Falcons are going to be 6.5-point home dogs.
Let me see if the look ahead is already up. I'm sure it is. It is not. Okay, well, we'll report back.
Yeah, we definitely will. And then I like this week in terms of the field is condensed. When we talk about our cash lineups in the pool of players, when you have bye weeks, when you have a London game, it already shrinks everything. So this is just a 10-game main slate. So we'll talk about the strategy of how you look at that. Some of the plays, like at quarterback, there's already like one overwhelmingly very clear play in the cash pool because we have a lot of the quarterbacks that are hurt, right? Lamar, Jane Daniels, we're still waiting on information about him. So we will talk about that quarterback. Little pro tease there. People are like, who is that quarterback? Who is that guy that I need to know? We will talk about that. But let's review.
Weekly Rewind.
So every single week on the website, I review my cash article. Betz reviews his small field GPP lineup. And if you want more strategy, like that's really the best way for us to talk things out. In cash this past week, I could not fathom building a lineup without Christian McCaffrey and Puka Nacua in it. So, 65, 70% of the field did it. But why were people not playing Puka? Like when you and I were turning over the cards and talking about head-to-head lineups, like why was Puka not played by everybody? In cash, like in tournaments, do whatever you want. But in cash, it felt very, very obvious what the obvious plays were.
Yeah, Puka and Christian McCaffrey were just unbelievable plays. And like we kind of joked on the show, it's like, is there a price that's too much for these guys right now? And the answer is probably not. Especially when you consider with Puka, like the projection already had in, the unreal role that he already had at baseline. But also when you consider the Devontae Adams hamstring, whether he be limited on a snap count or just not performing 100%, it's like, oh, well, Puka obviously has both an unbelievable floor but an unreal ceiling. And we saw that, 39 DraftKings points. This man is unstoppable. And then McCaffrey, it's the same conversation every single week, right? This week, we finally get to play in cash somebody else because McCaffrey's on Thursday night in the Rams and 49ers game. But the role is just so strong in these guys in cash games that are getting that workload. It's really hard to pass on. So, yeah, I thought if you didn't have both of those guys locked in your lineup, that was probably a mistake. From there, I thought it was kind of a tough situation because last week, if you recall, in week 3, that was the week where we had Mariota at 4K, and you could pretty much do anything you wanted because we had too much value. This week, I thought it was actually kind of a tricky slate from a value standpoint. So once you played those two studs and McCaffrey and Puka, there were some tough decisions to make at, wide receiver and your, third running back spot. If you went there, did you play Jackson Dart or did you stay with May? Both were awesome for fantasy, so it didn't really matter. But I thought it was more of a tricky slate for cash compared to week 3. And these are the slates that I actually like a lot more because I feel like when it's a pick 'em, I don't know. I just feel like it's like hard to make a bad lineup, and then you just kind of feel like, well, maybe I just got unlucky here. These weeks we have to sit down and like really think through kind of like tough decisions. I prefer those a lot more, and I know you and I both had a nice week in cash, so that was good to see.
Yeah, it was a great week in cash for me. I landed on Drake May. We didn't mention it, but Marion Hampton was played by 75+% of the field. That felt obvious. We did say don't play Hampton and Scadaboo in the same lineup, and Scadaboo was not one of our top plays. He ended up with 12 points, which I guess is okay, but you were missing out on some other plays. I was fortunate that I was a stubborn man and played Tyler Warren no matter what, and he ended up with 18 points. And then I ended up on a lineup with the Texans over the Titans, which you had the Titans and you cashed. I had the Texans and kind of made up the difference in a quirky build for myself. But it was a good week overall. Like I think the way people approach this is here are 3 to 4 very obvious plays. What are you doing at quarterback? And then what are you doing in that middle tier? And I kind of assume people will play with Jacoby Myers and Chris Olave and Drake London. If you got there, he did really, really well. He was another one of our plays in that middle range. But I thought it was a pretty good slate to kind of talk about theory and what to do. And the pivots that we brought up, the leverage points of Bucky Irving or Ashton Genty, were like, I saw a lot of people in their lineups play those guys in tournaments, not so much in cash. So any other quick thoughts about this past week?
I'll just highlight real quick my my small field article in the site, which go ahead and check it out if you want more information on that. But I played a Daniel Jones team. I guess I can't help myself with Daniel Jones this year. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I played Pittman as leverage off of Tyler Warren. They both scored within like 3 points of each other, so it didn't really matter that much. And I actually ran a double bring back with Puka and Devontae. I mentioned in cash Devontae, and I put this in my cash article on the site. I edited it Friday evening, just said, like, you probably don't have to go here in cash anymore just because of the hamstring concerns. No need to risk it in cash games. But in tournaments, I thought you could get a really low rostered Devontae Adams, which I was happy to get at 9% in the small field and just kind of hope that game went off. It kind of did, but also like didn't really because of A.D. Mitchell and, some weird turnovers and stuff. But I will say one thing I wanted to highlight on that. I wrote this in the article too, and I wanted to reiterate here. I think in fantasy, we don't do an awesome job at accurately predicting when players are going to have ceiling performances. And I wrote that because I had enough money to get to Matthew Stafford, and I played his wide receiver. So it's like, you're already betting on Puka and Devontae. Maybe you should just bet on Matthew Stafford. But in my head, and we've talked about this, it's like, you don't really ever need Stafford. Like, he doesn't really have that much of a ceiling. And just this year, we've seen a lot of examples of players having ceiling performances and not being able to predict that. And that's the key in DFS. Like, you can make educated guesses and matchups and projections and all those things, but it's really hard to accurately say this guy is not going to have ceiling, this guy is going to have ceiling. Wan'Dale Robinson, right? A couple weeks ago with Russ and the Cowboys game, like, goes nuts. 2 weeks ago, Trey Tucker, 3 touchdowns. Like, Kenneth Gainwell this past Sunday morning. Like, we really aren't good at identifying, like, this guy is definitely a ceiling play, this guy is definitely a floor play. And so just to reiterate, especially in small field stuff, correlation is always so important to me. And I feel like I really probably dropped the ball there a little bit I literally didn't even consider Stafford at all.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point to bring up because it's easy for us to pigeonhole players. We want them to fit in a box or it makes sense in our brains. Like, same thing in best ball. Like, oh, this guy's a better in best ball play. Quentin Johnson. Oh, man, he's going to have a couple of spike weeks. It's like, no, he's been one of those consistent players, and things aren't always what they've been. The NFL changes, scheme changes. So totally agree there. I will say, I did think Adonai Mitchell was a good play this week. And I think he did what he was supposed to do at his price, right? At 3,100. He just could have done more.
You could have broke the slate. I mean, a touchdown there goes a long way.
But if you put him in your lineup, though, I still think you could have had a tournament winning lineup with him at 3,100 getting 80-something receiving yards.
Yeah, definitely.
So we did have some listeners win big, though. And by big, there are a lot. And I'm going to forget some people that in the Discord, they gave us some awesome screenshots. And it's just a chance for us to celebrate with you guys. It's not a sales pitch, just a, hey, you stayed with the process and it was a good week for everybody. This first one's Jubilant John. Looks like he's a Panthers fan, so I guess they beat the Falcons. Said, thanks, Kyle and Matthew and the Foot Clan for all the great articles and dialogue. I won my first GPP of the season yesterday. Can anyone say Chili's? And in this lineup, he has Hampton, Genty, Puka, it's like his lineup looks pretty obvious, but really all it was a couple of different pivots of throwing Genty in there, who's a little bit lower, and Drake London. And then this one right here, this was one of my favorite ones to get a message. You got a message from Mike Palomino. He said, I wanted to send a big thank you to Borg and yourself for the week 4 articles in the DFS Pass. I've been listening to the show while mowing my lawn for the past 5 years, and today I can finally take my family to Chili's. I placed second in the 200K red zone for $15,000 thanks to Bucky, the Slate Breaker, and a few of the best plays. Keep up the process. Love the show. Keep it up.
Love it. Dude, Bucky, man. There was part of me that was so happy he was having an incredible game, but also I was terrified when the Eagles were about to lose that game. So it was an emotional day watching that one. But man, Mike, that is so awesome, man. Congratulations. Congrats to everybody. I know a lot of people had a good week in cash, whether it's tournaments and that sort of thing. I do want to just stick up real quick for Jubilant John, Kyle. You laughed when you said he's a Panthers fan. Just going to remind you, the Falcons did lose 30-0 14 days ago.
Did you know that they're favored now this week?
The Panthers?
Yes.
Who are they
the
playing?
line switched. They're playing the Dolphins.
I think that might make sense.
It shocked me because I look at the spreads before on a Monday, and then on a Tuesday I definitely switch over just to like, okay, what's the difference, and I can kind of track. And that game shifted. Obviously, Tyreek injury is what did that on Monday night. Also, I'm just gonna throw out a couple other people. Tate said Chili's for the fam. We can even get dessert. Looks like he won $1,000. Just some really cool stuff. There's a lot of Chili's being spent though.
I mean, basically what happens is when the DFS pass does well, Chili's, you see a spike, in their sales. So it might be a good idea if you are noticing in Discord, everybody's posting some screenshots of some W's, buy some Chili's stock that day because the next day everybody's going there to spend the money. Yeah,
you got to buy. Now, if it's a terrible week for us, terrible week for the pod, sell.
Sell. Exactly. Buy high, sell low. That's exactly what you want to do in stocks.
We are day traders at heart. Honestly, I don't know anything about that world. But if you do want to just berate somebody, Al Borland loves talking stocks.
Big stock
day
guy.
Trading. Oh, dude, that guy is always on his apps. Like, I don't know that world at all. And he's just like every day just day trading.
Love that. Multitasking, producing the show, investing. What a guy.
I guess that's kind of what we're doing in fantasy. It's day trading. It's just on the toilet while you're trying to trade for a player. I don't know. It's not the same. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll look at week 5.
State of the main slate.
All right, week 5, which we've got a month under our belt. And I don't know if people want to hear this, but that's basically a quarter, a little less than that of the season. It's gone.
I don't love
Just
that.
Remember the good times.
Come on, Kyle, don't bring us down.
It's the Andy Bernard. I wish you could, remember you're in the good old days.
That's true.
When you're in them. But week 5 could be the week that you take your family to Chili's. It is a 10-game main slate. So 6 games in the early window, 4 in the late. And because we have a London game, because the Vikings are just chilling in London, chilling like across the seas, they're like, hey, we were doing Ireland, and then now we're going to stay here for a week. My next door neighbor, by the way, this is a shout out, is a huge Vikings fan. I mean, just over the top. He owns a brewery here in Atlanta that is the Vikings brewery for like Atlanta, like in different cities.
That's cool.
He went to the game in Ireland.
Oh, sweet. So you got to see Carson Wentz.
He did, who was the QB5 last time I checked in fantasy, despite having a terrible game.
Garbage time is fun, man. It's a fun time. Do you want to shout out the brewery?
Skull Brewery.
There you go.
Yeah. So if you're in Atlanta, that's where to go. This week, the highest total game I'm seeing right now is Detroit at Cincinnati, or a team formerly known as the Bengals. That's what it felt like watching that Monday night game. Was like, oh, I remember when this team used to be the Bengals. Why is Zach Taylor a head coach? Only because of his quarterback. And without his quarterback, it's a train wreck. It is like really, it's sad to watch. It's sad to watch. If you drafted Chase Brown in any format, you have to just be collecting your tears.
Or Jamar Chase, or T. Higgins. I mean, it's pretty dysfunctional right now. Also, like 0% chance to succeed on the road in Denver against that defense and pass rush.
Course.
They'll have better spots where like he'll have some nice performances that kind of surprise us. And I don't want to say this too early, but I think this could be one of those spots. We're not going to really...
Slate breaker. That's what I heard.
Jake Browning, slate breaker this week. Lock him in. Exactly. The Lions do have some cornerback injuries going on, so And we've seen these games between Detroit and other teams where they're just scoring at will, and I think they're going to score at will this week. Where the Bengals will have no choice but to keep whatever this is for them, keep their foot on the pedal. But I do think better days are ahead, and you'll have some nice games from those guys. So I love playing those types of players. When the talent is there, and they're the last thing you just saw was embarrassing on national TV. I think this could be a nice sneaky kind of spot for maybe a T or Jamar game.
A little cat fight game.
Exactly.
Lions and Bengals. Yeah, those you got to circle those. Whenever it's a bird fight, cat fight in the league really likes that. So that game's at 48.5. It's the highest total of the week. Can you hit me with the teams that have the highest implied team totals for week 5?
Yeah, in that same game, the Lions, 29.5. Yes, please. The Colts, 27 points. The Cowboys at 25.3. The Cardinals and the Chargers both tied at 25, and then the Eagles there at 24.
From a general slate context, there are 4 games right now on this main slate that are at 47.5 or higher. So they're kind of going to be the games that people gravitate towards. I do think there's some interesting ones we'll talk about in a second, but there's about 3 or 4 games that are better than the rest, a couple of middling ones, and then a couple down there at the bottom. Luckily, we don't have Vikings and Browns, which, did you see the over-under for that game?
A nice 36.5. I'm sorry, London. I'm sorry we did this to you guys. But you get Carson Wentz without an offensive line. Starting center is going to be out. I think the right tackle is going to be out.
Brian O'Neill, yeah.
Christian Darrisaw is still not really 100% against Myles Garrett and that pass rush. I'm so sorry for the experience you're about to have on Sunday morning.
All right, so the games that are going to be most popular this next week, I'm going to start off by just throwing out the Colts and the Raiders. The Colts are 6.5 point home favorites. It's in a dome. You get a couple of high-end running backs, Genty off that 3-touchdown game, Jonathan Taylor off a down game. You get these quarterbacks. Geno has been hot and cold. Look at his game logs. Weeks 1 and 3, awesome. 2 and 4, atrocious. And then you get Daniel Jones. You get elite tight ends, my boy Tyler Warren, Brock Bowers. And then both defenses, I would put them in the category of bend, don't break. Whereas you can look at some of their statistics and say, why are they not worse? They've been in some of these shootouts, and yet it's because they've been a little bit fortunate. So I think that's a great game environment. And spoiler alert, okay? It's early in the week, but I think you and I we've cracked the code for Survivor Pool.
Well, if you take a look at this, I tented my pants.
I did have someone the other day say, hey, I still don't understand whenever you guys talk about tenting your pants.
That sounds like a you problem. Figure it out, okay?
Okay, so really behind the scenes, we needed a drop to talk about Survivor stuff. And whenever I've used the I'm a Survivor, it gets flagged. I can't use it.
For copyright.
If I wanted to, yeah, I can't. So we're well, what is the next most obvious thing? It's clearly the episode of The Office called Survivor Man when Michael builds a tent out of his pants.
Yeah, I mean, you got to watch the episode, but basically he's trying to prove that he can last a day in the woods by himself, no food, no water, just...
And by the woods, not very far out.
like 3 miles from the office in a woods. And Michael decides to create shelter out of his pants, creating a pants tent. Now, that has other meanings. I will let that go. But that's the drop he went with. And, Kyle, I think it's been working well. So you tell me, 4-0.
We are 4-0. We've been giving our picks every single week. We'll finalize ours on Friday. We took the Patriots this past week, which, that they were losing right off the start.
I did. And then they won by a lot.
They put up 30-something straight points. So that one felt really good. But the Colts are an early favorite, and we'll profile that game later this week. But I think that'll be one of the most popular games of the week.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm also going to throw out Dallas and the Jets. And the total here is nice at 47.5. The Jets defense, they're whatever. They're 15th in a lot of categories. They're not going to be a difference maker like they used to be the last 2-3 years. They're just not that defense anymore. Meanwhile, we know what we're getting on Dallas as far as their defense, which is quite terrible. And you look at some of the pricing, which was before Monday Night Football. I think Justin Fields will be in the cash conversation. He's pretty cheap. And then Braylon Allen going to miss this game. You get Breece Hall with a nice projection at a good salary. And then without CeeDee Lamb in the lineup for the Cowboys, you know exactly where the ball is going to go. Javonte, George Pickens, Jake Ferguson, which makes the stacks really clean, but also I could see it being pretty popular. So I am interested in that game. We're just going to have to kind of see what looks like for roster percentages.
In terms of sneaky games for this week, I circled Seattle and Tampa Bay. The total's not that high. It's at 44.5. But we need to wait on some injury news in that game to see what shakes out at the running back positions. I know Bucky Irving was one of those that I really liked this past week. If you're sorting this week by weighted opportunities, he's number one among all running backs in weighted opportunities per game. If he's hurt, Rachaad White at 4,700 is going to be a popular play. Seattle's offense is pretty condensed. It's like, are you going to play JSN? And that's it. So, and then I like Baker a lot. I think Baker's just a sneaky play. He's running the ball way more than we give him credit. So I think that's a sneaky game in the afternoon slate.
I could see it. I'll throw out Carolina and Miami. Now, the Miami side is not going to be sneaky by any means, just because the unfortunate Tyreek Hill injury is going to create a lot of value.
Value menu.
On the Dolphins side, because of course that was all priced before he was injured on Monday night. So you'll get Jalen Waddle. I think he'll be popular. Devon Achane is going to stand out as an obvious play. We're going to have to talk about Darren Waller at some point this week, and part of me still has not wrapped my head around the fact that maybe he's a guy that you might need this week, where it's like, 3 weeks ago, this guy was like not even on our brains at all because he didn't do anything in camp.
You think of him more as a rapper.
The rapper, correct, Darren Waller. Rapper turned football player. Hey, if you played the 2-gamer on Monday night, I came in second in small field because of Darren Waller, who was on the winning team. But just because of all that value, you get that there. But then I think this is a nice spot for Carolina's offense to really kind of get going a little bit. And maybe you see finally a ceiling performance from Tedderell McMillan, who it feels like he's been close, but obviously hasn't gotten there yet. This matchup, very, very good against a struggling Miami defense.
Yeah, Tedderell McMillan is one of 3 players to see 8 targets each of the first 4 weeks. Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, Tedderell McMillan, and you kind of haven't seen that yet. I'm doing a deep dive on the Dynasty podcast on McMillan through 4 weeks if you want to look at that. A game that you want to be underweight on, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not super jazzed about this Saints and Giants game. It's going to be without Malik Neighbors. The Giants, their games have hit the under in 3 of the last 4. They lost their best player. Could be some value. But I just find when people say like, ooh, I get a backup wide receiver at a cheap cost, like you can play that in cash. I just don't think this is a game that you want to be chasing.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised. I thought we were going to get Wan'Dale like pretty cheap, but they priced him up a decent amount. So I think he'll be fine. Like he'll probably be in the cash conversation, but I was ready to come in and be like, oh, sweet, 4,600. Like let's just play him and move on. But they kind of priced him up with the Malik Neighbors injury. Man, it's tough, dude. Like, and Dart was good for running, right? He ran a lot. He scrambled a ton. That's what you want to see. But what do you have, like 80-something yards passing? It's really hard to kind of sustain that. So we'll see what happens there. The other thing that happened coming out of that game is they haven't really said it's a hamstring injury, but they said he'll be limited in practice to start the week because of his hamstring, speaking about Jackson Dart. So if there's any way that he's not 100% and the scrambling is like what kept the offense going, and Cam Scatterbo, it's hard to see it. So yeah, I'm kind of waiting to see what's going on with Dart, but I'm with you. Game environment looks quite gross.
Yeah, like Darius Slayton, who's somebody we've played in the past. If he was a 3,400 play, he's 4,300. Theo Johnson, still not that cheap. Like it seems like Scatterbo might be the only semi-cheap play, but he's 6,000 as well. So for a team that's been not great, like yes, they beat the Chargers, which is super sad. The offense wasn't like totally functional. It was Jackson Dart was good at his salary for the game we play, not necessarily moving forward. And then the Saints, like I think Kellen Moore has done a fine job for what he has, but this offense just can't be functional beyond just like cheap PPR plays.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm going to throw out a game that I'll be underweight on is Arizona and Tennessee. There was a quote this week from Cam Moore that I would encourage you to find and look at yourself. I won't read it on the show, but he pretty much straight up said we're terrible. And he's right, because the Titans are 25th in plays and they're dead last in points per game. So you have an offense that can't sustain drives and can't put up points. It's just hard to see those game environments really get going. And then at the same time, Calvin Ridley reportedly got banged up in that game. We'll see what happens with him. And then I think the Cardinals could get back some of their corners that are injured right now. They could get them back after this past, mini bye week, so to speak. So it all kind of lines up for a gross game. And then with the Cardinals, man, you really never know what you're going to get. I could see a Benson play or a one-off play of McBride or something, but I just don't think I'm going to stack up this game and really get into it too deep. I think the Cardinals are another team too where it's like they kind of need to be pushed, right? They're totally content to not run up the scoreboard
Correct.
if the other team is not asking them to do that. So I struggle to see this one putting up a ton of points.
Cam Ward, and this isn't a dynasty podcast. We have one of those. But one of the concerns we brought up is what works in college. This is what the problem was with Caleb a year ago. What works in college is off-script stuff where you can move around in the pocket against a bunch of people that are about to be, financial advisors or, whatever other job they're about to have. It doesn't work in the NFL. It just doesn't, especially with a team that doesn't have a ton of talent. So Calvin Ridley has been boo-boo for fantasy, just absolutely trash. And that, I think it's a good point. It's like, don't chase this game because what Arizona wants to do is just keep things just really simple, run the ball. Anyway, I'm just really confident in Indianapolis this week in terms of teams hitting the over of their implied total. The Raiders defense is the clearest in the NFL of what do they want to do. They run zone 93% of the time. It's the highest in the NFL. And they run cover 3 54% of the time. That's also highest in the NFL. This year, Daniel Jones against cover 3 is number 3 in completion percentage, number 1 in YPA, and number 1 in passer rating. It's just a matchup nightmare for a team that just has so many different options. Like if they get Alec Pierce back, that's great. I just think this is a great spot for the Colts. And so I highlighted the game earlier, and we'll highlight him again, but this is our early favorite survivor pick.
Makes sense. I'm going to go with Houston, actually.
Ooh, sneaky.
To go over 19.5. The Ravens injury report currently is a CBS receipt. I mean, this is brutal. And we're a month into the season, and it already feels like it's spiraling out of control. Obviously, they've had some defensive injuries even before this last week with Matabuke on the defensive line, Kyle Van Noy, hamstring injury. But they also just lost, or might lose for this game, Ronnie Stanley, left tackle. That's an issue. Lamar Jackson might not play. And then on defense, they're not going to have Roquan Smith, Marlon Humphrey, and Nate Wiggins, all because of injuries in this past week's game. So they are literally going to have half of their defensive starters be backups in this spot. So if ever there was a week to say, hey, maybe the Texans offense can really get it going here, I think this is the spot. They've allowed every team that they face, the Ravens have, to score at least 20 points. I think the Texans can get it done. Despite the fact that they've got issues, I think there's just the injuries right now for Baltimore are too much. So I will take Houston over 19.5.
I want to spend just a second talking about Lamar because I might have led you astray this past week.
Me or the listeners?
Both, because we took a line, which obviously Lamar getting hurt doesn't help. So we didn't win that one in the props. But I messaged Betz and I said, hey, I've been doing some thinking. I know you're at the Penn State game. I know you guys are about to lose.
Oh my, don't do this to me.
But I said, this is what I said, Betz. I said, Betz, I think I've come to the realization. What if Lamar is Lamar? I know, very, very deep. Because he wasn't getting played. We both knew that. And Lamar is one of those people that if he's not being played, same with Henry, they can break a slate. So I got real wild. I played naked Lamar.
Hey now.
And I had a tournament. Oh man, this tournament lineup was crushing in the early window. And I was like, nobody's going to have Lamar in the late window. And I'm up there in a small field. I'm sitting at 13th. And I've got 2 quarters left. I've got Lamar. I've got a couple other options. I even got a Tyquan Thornton touchdown.
Okay.
Which, like, he was doing nothing. I'm like, oh man, this team is there. I pulled all the right levers. Genty. I had Genty and Bucky. I had Hampton. This team was looking great. And then, Lamar gets hurt, and I end up with like 12 points from a really expensive quarterback.
I was actually pretty excited about the way the game was going for Lamar's fantasy day.
Yes.
I was like, oh man, negative game script. Like, he's going to drop back a ton, which means we're going to get a lot of scrambles, and we're going to get a lot of pass attempts. And then they, of course, come on and announce that he's out with the hamstring. I'm like, come on, man. So, yeah, it is what it is. But this Ravens team, dude, it's like, I don't know what their odds are for them to make or miss the playoffs, but they've got a week 7 bye. And so if this Lamar hamstring issue is like legit, do they sit him through the bye week? I mean, we're entering week 5, so that'll be 2 games. Like, they could literally go into their bye potentially, 1 in 5? 1 in 6? 1-5. So yeah, it's crazy. The Ravens are a great team, but they just have so many injuries, which I think these defensive injuries, low key, massive for Derrick Henry as far as like the positive game script outlook, which is not DFS related necessarily, but just kind of season long. I'm a little worried about the King.
The Ravens. Oh man. There's lots of different ways to attack it. What would you put their win total at for the rest of the year?
The live win total, I would put at probably 8.5.
Okay. I need to make sure that this is correct. I need to update it. I'm seeing 10.5 on DK.
Okay, let me log in. I mean, I never log off, but like if I was going to log in, I need to find this number and
I'm seeing
potentially
10.5. The under's at -130. That shocked me. You can tell me.
Yeah, I'm going to bet that.
Okay. This is going to move the line. Let me just already push the button.
Moving the lines.
So
that's wrong.
So
that
real
line
quick
is wrong.
on these next two matchups, they play the Texans, who I mentioned. The spread is moving in favor of Houston. So right now, the latest line I'm seeing is 3.5. Field goal in the NFL is nothing. Then they play the Rams. Obviously, could potentially lose that game. So like I said, they could go into their Week 7 bye 1-5.
1-6 maybe, or 1-5.
1-5.
Yeah.
Math is hard, I know. 1-5, 2-4, 2-3.
Whatever it is, not good.
But
10.5 shocked me.
But then they come out and they do get some nice matchups, like the Dolphins. We'll see what's going on with the Vikings, the Browns, the Jets, and the Bengals. So they really could turn it around after the bye week, but it does kind of feel like that line is not factoring in how injured this team is, which is very, very injured, to reiterate. So I'm going to take that.
Yeah, I would have put it at 9.5, even on both sides. So just to give you some other teams that are at 10.5 right now, the Chiefs, the Chargers. It's just a weird line for a team that's already trended in this direction. The Buccaneers are at 10.5, 49ers at 10.5, Rams at 10.5, Packers at 10.5. Like all of those teams are in a different spot. Now that there's juice on different sides and stuff, but I wanted to bring up that Lamar point. I know we're kind of, staying on this because the way that you play in tournaments is that you pull a couple levers and then you look up from some of yours and goes, man, this lineup could have gotten somewhere. And yet where I did pivot from everyone else, it just didn't work out. So I think in theory, me playing Lamar at like 4% in a small field felt awesome. And then I look up, I was like, man, I wish I would have played Drake May for $2,000 cheaper. And I probably would have used the money somewhere else. But the process, he says, as his family leaves him. The team I am most confident hitting the under of their implied total. Correct me if I am wrong. I wrote in the doc, I hate Tennessee. Their implied total is at 16.5. I hated it last week, and they scored as many points as you and I. They were shut out. They're averaging 12.8 points per game this year, and it's just not working out so well. So yeah, I'm staying away from that team. I don't care, and I'll say it every week. I don't care if Tony Pollard projects really, really well. I don't think he's needed in DFS at all. He will probably have a game where he makes me eat my words, but I bet against Tony Pollard every single week so far, and I bet against him all offseason because I just think it's a bad team environment. So, no thank you.
Yeah, it's tough to find ceiling on Pollard when your touchdown expectation as a team is like maybe you score 2 touchdowns this week. It's just tough to find ceiling when that's the case. But yeah, I'm with you. Hard to say many positive things right now about the Titans. I will go over to the England game in London and take Vikings under 20.5. The offensive line injuries are piling up big time for the Vikings, and they're not going to get better this week. So they will be down multiple starters, and you're taking on a Cleveland defense that is number 1 in yards per play allowed, 9th in EPA per play, and 5th is success rate. So this looks like a slugfest to me where Wentz will be under pressure all day long. So I will take under 20.5 on the Vikings.
Do you play the international games? Like, do you play Showdown for those?
I usually just do like 1 or 2 lineups. I don't play as much as I do for Monday and Thursday, but I usually play 1 or 2.
Same. I just, it's hard for me to get my head around the main slate as it is. And then, the weekends are crazy with stuff to feel like I'm like really there. And then I would have totally built some lineups with Jaylen Warren this past week. That would have been painful.
Yeah, he got you 0 points, buddy. So that would have been good.
Well, I didn't. I would have. I know me. I would have done it. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back.
Salary standouts.
All right, early in the week, here are some plays that stand out to us. The First Look article, which is there in the DFS Pass, has all of the statistics that you need, fantasy points per dropback, weighted opportunities, all the cool nerd stuff that you would like just to highlight, and it's conditionally formatted. So the colors are appealing to a lot of people. Did I lose a couple people in our audience right there?
Yep, you sure did there. You sure did.
Well, I saw you tweeting out a chart this morning. It was a really cool chart, and I go, there's no chance you did that.
I mean, dude, come on. Everybody knows I'm the tech guy on staff.
All right, quarterback this week, Justin Fields, I alluded to it earlier, is probably going to be the play that most people go to. He's 5.6 against Dallas. They're allowing the highest fantasy points per dropback in the NFL. And with Justin Fields, you get the crazy, awesome rushing floor. So at 5.6, that is too cheap for what he can do. Hopefully they're pushed in this game. You and I discussed the Jets game plan and Aaron Glenn and what they were trying to do. It was horrendous. Even Dan Orlovsky on the broadcast was like, why are they not just throwing to Garrett Wilson as much as they can? The only other wide receiver on the team that caught a pass was Allen Lazard. It was so bad, and yet Garrett Wilson looked awesome. So I think Justin Fields at 5.6 is going to be the easy cash play early in the week before we get maybe some more value.
Yeah, I mean, the team is built to run, right? And so when you fall behind multiple scores, you can't have Justin Fields as a drop back passer and be functional. For fantasy, it can be great, but for real life NFL, it's a train wreck if they can't run the football, which they were running successfully in that game. They just, fell behind in that, and you keep trying to run when you're down 2 scores with 8 minutes left. You're not going to win. So tough scene there with the Jets, 0-4. We'll see what they do this week against the Cowboys. But yeah, Fields looks great. I will say at the same time, I know you want to talk about a couple more quarterbacks while we're talking Jets. Because of Braylon Allen's injury, Breece Hall will also look pretty cheap. He's 5,600. Obviously, the matchup very good against the Cowboys.
Can you play them together?
I think so. I think they're cheap enough that you could.
The offense is pretty condensed. And I was looking at this earlier in terms of just like the share of the team's total rush attempts and targets. He's seeing 33% Breece Hall. So a third of the offense this year has been Breece Hall. And then it's basically Garrett Wilson and a little bit of Mason Taylor. That's the offense.
Dude, I mean, like sometimes you say stuff and it seems like hindsight analysis. But like entering training camp, we were like, and everybody said this, right? It was like, how is this team going to be like supporting Justin Fields with Josh Reynolds as the wide receiver 2 and a rookie tight end? Like you can't do that. So if Breece goes down, if Garrett Wilson goes down, I mean, it's over.
Yeah, they were talking about on the broadcast, like I think they did a good job dissecting the Jets and like picking them apart because they had 13 penalties. But they were like, the only way you address the wide receiver room is making a trade, which usually doesn't work in the NFL or in the offseason. And they didn't do it. They just said, let's go into the season with Josh Reynolds and a 4th rounder, Arian Smith, who's really not a complete wide receiver. It's a bad look. So Fields 5.6 is going to be up there. Daniel Jones, I want to mention at 5.8 because he's been really, really good. And we talked about the game environment. I want to tease people with Cooper Rush. We have played him before. Okay. We have talked about him on this podcast when he was a Cowboy. He is a Raven, in case you didn't know. If Lamar doesn't play, he's 4.2. So I think it's worth a mention. And I don't think I have the stones to play him.
I don't think you're going to need him because we have the Dolphins value and because you have cheap Breece Hall for cash games and maybe Woody Marks if you want to go there too. We'll talk about that. And if no Bucky, you'll have Richard Dick out there, White. So you probably don't need him in that scenario, but I do think you should at least consider him for now until we get more information.
He's like got the invitation to the party. And if he's a no-show, it's not a big deal to me.
Exactly.
On FanDuel, it's Fields and Dak in the same game. So that'll be interesting to see the Cowboys roster percentage and the Jets. The Jets, it's funny to think of the Jets being a popular team at 0-4, but in DFS, they're going to be popular.
Yep, they sure will be.
All right, running back, the expensive guys are JTT at $8K, so he's getting up there in price compared to what we were paying. Jahmyr Gibbs at 7.7. The Lions have the highest implied total. We talked about this. So those are the studs this week. And I think we get a good little Monday night pricing glitch with Devon Achane at 7.3. Early in the week, he seems like if I'm going to pay up for somebody, he seems like the most elite play against the Panthers.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. You're going to get, obviously, whatever the baseline projection was as far as his pass game work. But now without Tyreek, I mean, you're going to add, an extra 2-3 targets there, at least in the projection. So it should look very, very strong for Achane. I think he'll be incredibly popular, so we can talk about how to handle that more in tournaments on the Friday show. But yeah, for cash games against the Panthers, that makes a ton of sense.
Marion Hampton keeps going up in price, and he's seeing the workload. So, at 6.5, we're going to like him. He was a tackle-breaking machine on that one play you probably saw against the Giants. Great workload, over 30 DK points last week. He's in that nice middle range, but early in the week, it seems like it's going to be Achane, either Breece or Javonte in the same game. So I could see people saying, I'm going to play Fields at quarterback. I'm going to play Javonte at 6.2 because I want in on this game environment. And then in the lower range, I think Kamara looks fine at 5.9. Scadaboo's 6K if you wanted to pick a running back from that game. And then Rashad White. So early in the week, I feel like there's a couple different routes you can go and cash. It's mostly what do you do with the Jets?
Yeah, on FanDuel, Woody Marks looks awesome. He's 5,400, starting to see a ton of work in that backfield. His snap count has gone up literally every single week, and a lot of good reports from the coaching staff after a strong performance this past week. So he makes a lot of sense too, and we talked about the issues on the Ravens' defensive line. Woody Marks looks interesting.
At wide receiver, every week I do the same thing. I look at my spreadsheets, I sort it by targets per dollar, and every week it's Chris Olave staring us right in the face. He's only 5,200. And every week we're going to say, he's a really good cash play. I did not have him throwing an interception on my bingo card because when I was looking at my cash lineup, I was like, wow, how does Chris Olave have -2? I'm at my kid's baseball game. I'm like, what is going on right now? But he's going to project well.
Yep, every week. Oh, man. He finally didn't see 10 targets, Kyle. It actually happened. But yeah, it's the same conversation kind of every week with him. Jacoby's also in the same range, same conversation with him. Waddle is going to stick out this week at 5,400, obviously without Tyreek. So yeah, again, like the DK kind of pricing this year for wide receivers, that there's been 2 to 5, depending on the week, really strong players in the 5K range at wide receiver. So I think a lot of cash builds, once again, are going to have 1 or 2 of those pieces at least, depending on what the other positional value looks like. But yeah, again, that mid to low 5K range looks strong.
Garrett Wilson, 6,100, another one of those Monday night pricing glitches where he just sees all of the offense. Going into Monday night bets, he had 47% of the team's first read targets.
How does he not have like 100? Like, there's nobody else to throw the ball to.
Oh, he's going to look good. Keenan Allen, always looking kind of good, 5,600. Tedero McMillan, 5,700. All of these guys are in that range where, normally we're paying up for Puka, who's going to be on Thursday night, so we don't have that. The expensive wide receivers this week, Amon-Ra at 7,900. Chase, who you're not playing in cash. CeeDee Lamb, who might not even play. JSN at 7,100. So I don't know if people are going to go there this week, but I'm just looking around at the salaries. Like, there's nobody we're like saying, I'm paying for CMC and Puka. Neither of them are on this slate. So I do think we're going to like almost have too much money where everyone's like, I like the middle tier, but you got to use your money somewhere.
Yeah. And I think you could spend up at tight end this week if you did want to do that with somebody named Tyler Warren, who I just heard about for the first time against the Raiders. So that's where to spend your money.
I'm trying to put this in the most like simple, clear way. I think I've thought about Tyler Warren every single day for the last like 4 months.
Do you even think about your wife every day?
I try to. I feel like I'm a pretty good husband, but I don't think she understands there's somebody else, it's that meme of like lying in bed. I bet he's cheating on me. It's like, oh, he's just thinking about Tyler Warren's TPRR.
The thing is, like, it's obviously a joke, but it's definitely not a joke. Like, you're definitely thinking about that at night.
What did I message you yesterday about Tyler Warren?
I don't remember.
which message was it? That I got my stuff together for Halloween.
Oh, yes. Yeah, don't spoil it.
Okay. Well, I don't mind saying it. Everyone knows he's my guy. I told Betz, not a big Halloween guy, very big about dressing up.
That's fine. I respect it.
And being ahead of the game. So at tight end, the 4 pay-up options this week: Trey McBride, 5,800, Brock Bowers at 5,500, Jake Ferguson, who has morphed into Tony Gonzalez somehow, is only 4,800, and Tyler Warren is 4,700. All of those tight ends are in play. I think Bowers people aren't going to play because of what he's done. But did you know that Jake Ferguson has the most receptions ever for a tight end through the first 4 games of a season? Ever?
I'm looking at his game logs. 7 catches, 13 catches, 9 catches, 5 catches.
Frame it. Frame that for him. Send it to him.
I will. Jake, it's in the mail.
Dude, he's going to keep showing up every single week because of what he did here. He could fart around for the next couple of weeks, and he's going to still project really, really well because he's not priced up. So you could talk me into McBride. I probably will land with Ferguson, but I'll probably end up with Warren.
I was going to say, no, you won't. Let's just be honest about that.
You could punt with other options like Darren Waller, we mentioned, is a conversation at 3,500 because he caught 2 touchdowns on Monday night. I just don't think you have to do that on this slate. If we were paying up for 2 to 3 studs and we're punting at quarterback and we're punting at tight end, you can do it. Early in the week, it's like, I want an elite tight end.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, on a normal slate, if you didn't have a lot of value, you probably could go there. I just don't think you have to on the slate with the money that you'll have to go around. Do you know how many routes he actually ran last night?
Darren Waller, I do not.
Okay, that's another thing is, like, he wasn't on the field, even though the box score was great because of the touchdowns. He wasn't really on the field a ton. I'll have to find that data.
Okay, here's a great question. What should Jake Ferguson be priced as? He's 4,800.
Based off of the workload,
Targets.
probably 5,200.
Well, dude, I think if you knew somebody was seeing 10 targets a game at the tight position, they should be 6K.
I found the routes. Per PFF,
Yeah?
he ran 10 of them.
What?
10 routes. 4 targets. I mean, dude, you love the targets route run. That is going to pop.
That's 40%.
That's hot. Yeah. 16 snaps out of 58. 10 out of 28 routes. 4 targets. So
Did they ask him to pass block?
does not look like it.
They're like, we don't trust you yet. You weren't there and part of the game plan. It is nice, though, because like we were making fun of him of like signing and like, are you just here for the vibes because you're nowhere close to playing? And then the first game pops off. Told you so. That's what he's telling everybody.
Another example of you cannot predict the NFL and nobody ever will be able to.
No, not at all. Anyway, I think Tyler Warren at 4,700 should be 5,500 or higher just for the role. But tight ends are just not expensive. You remember we were paying like 7K for Kelsey?
Yeah.
And Trey McBride is the tight end 1 on the slate at 5,800?
Well, I think it's because McBride, has struggled with touchdown production. So like he hasn't had, at least this year, he hasn't had a ton of the ceiling games for PPR scoring. And then Bowers is kind of banged up, so he hasn't really been popping off yet. So DK's price algorithm reflects recent performance plus roster percentage. And nobody's really playing these guys at a high level. Whereas like 5 years ago when Kelsey was still in his prime, Kelsey was just like the guy and you would play him. And so they price him up. But yeah, it is interesting. Tight end pricing is down, relatively speaking. Wide receiver pricing seems to be down, relatively speaking. So I don't know if DK is just trying something new this year or what, but I've liked it a lot with pricing and how it works with building lineups.
Yeah, I've enjoyed, paying for these elite tight ends. You said Trey McBride, he's really struggled, with this touchdown problem. It sounded like he has like this addiction problem. And it's like, he's just really working through some stuff. Can't score touchdowns. That's his problem.
Vice. We've all got one. His is he just hates touchdowns.
Jake Ferguson hadn't scored a touchdown since week 13 of 2023. Finally got in the end zone.
He did. We missed a really nice opportunity to bet anytime touchdown.
Oh, because that's worked out really well for us. Hey, we did get a Bucky touchdown on the pod, right?
Yeah, we thought it would be a running, but turns out 70-yard wheel route, that works too.
I used it on PrizePicks, not plugging here, but it was a Bucky touchdown. Was the they have like the goblin or the demon, and the demon's like, it was a demon.
Nice.
I know, I did pretty well with that. All right, let's finish up with defense this week. There are a couple of pay-up options. The Cardinals are really expensive for being a not great defense. I know they're at home. They're against Cam Ward. I don't think you need to pay up. They're not like a smash defense. Last week, remember, we had the Texans, the Lions, and the Bills as like, if you want to pay up for them, they are good defenses in good spots. I think the Cardinals are a defense in a good spot. The Colts, I think, are fine at 3.3 if you want to go there and you think that they just trounce the Raiders and Geno is a turnover machine. You could do that one. In the middle range, there's a couple of options that I'm kind of interested in. But I think the Texans stand out to me if it's Cooper Rush at 2.4.
Yeah, the Texans make so much sense just because their prices if they're playing an elite Ravens.
2.5. Excuse me.
Oh, big deal, Kyle. That's going to change everything.
Someone's going to like come in and be like, I'm $100. There's a difference here.
They are prices if they're playing like an elite Ravens offense. And obviously if Lamar is not there and they don't have Ronnie Stanley, things are changing. Plus, they are actually talented. Whereas, like, sometimes defenses down here, last week it was the Titans. Not that great, but you just kind of play them and plug your nose. At least you can, like, get excited about the Texans defense. So I think if it is Cooper Rush, they're going to be wildly popular for good reason. And then on FanDuel, yeah, 3,600 is a nice price there as well for the Texans.
What do you think about, speaking of 2,400, the Saints at home? It's the lowest over-under on the main slate, 40.5. They're only 2,400 against Jackson Dart.
I wanted to correct you real quick, Kyle. I am logged into DraftKings.com. It is 2,400 for the Texans.
Dang it, my spreadsheets are wrong.
Better check yourself, brother. How do I feel about the Saints? I guess you could go there.
I think you could play the Giants or the Saints, and the Saints are the cheaper option.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's not glorious. We give all of our defensive, leverage points. I try to stay relatively flat in my exposures. Like when we're talking about tournament plays or like if you're playing a 3-max or 20-max, I'm not trying to say like this is the defense that you need this week. And I don't really have one that stands out to me early in the week like I have to play this. I do think Seattle is kind of sneaky if you want to play them at home. They've been getting back a lot of people and they're only 2,900. So they look like a pretty good play. Any last cash thoughts? Any birthday cash thoughts?
I would like to win some birthday cash this week. That's my thought.
Did you get a card from your grandma in the mail with some cash?
Sure did.
Like a 5?
Sure did. That's from my Mimi. That's what I call her. Shout out to Mimi.
The other day, Truman and I were at the ballpark, as we are every single day. It was what it feels like. And he wanted to buy something at the concession stand, and all he had was a $2 bill. I was like, where the heck did you get this thing?
Nothing else, just that?
Just a $2 bill.
Oh, man.
I was like, it's good stuff. All right, Betz, sign us off for the people, and you go have your birthday.
Yes, sir. Should be an awesome week in DFS, an interesting week because of all this value we have. But we'll break it all down for you guys on Friday with the second episode this week. Enjoy the week. Enjoy my birthday, which I know you all are going to. And I'll catch you guys on Friday. Have an awesome week. We'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.